but money on something. And you are live. Hello, everyone. Dr. Rob Kiltz here. Really excited to bring on Austin Cavelli, quality carnivore, for a discussion on diet and inflammation and lifestyle. And I talk a lot about fertile life, and I know she's living a fertile life and being very creative. And Austin, welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're coming from.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Dr. Kiltz. It's always a pleasure. So I am from the same town as you in Syracuse, New York. I am now currently out here in San Diego, but I've been trained physician assistant. I was in the medical field for 5 years, working predominantly in anti-inflammatory in the anti-inflammatory field of orthopedics, particularly with a lot of rheumatologic patients, orthopedic patients with arthritis. And so very inflammatory conditions. However, the focus wasn't ever really on lifestyle. It was kind of my own journey that I focused on the root cause of disease, and just more so for prevention, if anything, and wanting to be healthy as someone in the healthcare field. And I really saw that the impact that lifestyle has on preventing disease and maintaining our health, and of course, how I felt each and every day. And so, I focused on the diet in the sense of kind of, my brother moved out to Portland, and paleo at that time was all the talk. So I got into that with him, and then kind of transitioned to keto, and then more carnivore. And I must say, I never felt better in my entire life. So it was the typical journey, as many people say, well, I was keto before and then I went carnivore. But removing plant sources was very important for me, particularly for digestion and also for mood. I come from a history of obsessive compulsive disorder as a kid. And so a lot of anxiety, just not only with the OCD, but also just generalized anxiety growing up, put a lot of pressure on myself, and was kind of the perfectionist type A personality. And then, digestive issues I had for several years, starting out with being lactose intolerant, and then realizing, some of these plants, even whether it was broccoli or Brussels sprouts, they all were really not helping me, despite doctors saying, "Oh, add more fiber, add more fiber." So that was kind of the reasons for my choices. And like I said, I've never felt better.
So I know for myself, it was all accidental. And initially, 20 years ago, I started talking a lot about the mindfulness and meditation and yoga and acupuncture and how that helped our journey. I wrote a book called The Fertile Secret, took off of The Secret for Rhonda Byrne, how to bring positivity in our lives. And I thought, wow, that's it. And then suddenly some people were getting pregnant doing this thing called paleo. And that's probably about 15 years ago that I started talking about paleo. And I thought it was the very, very best. And I personally started doing it myself because we as doctors knew nothing about this stuff because it wasn't taught to us, and because diet doesn't matter in all of this. And I've since transitioned to carnivore over 10 years ago. And before that, I was in the keto realm. But it was sort of like someone like yourself said, well, I'm doing this and all of my diseases went away. And I'm like, no way. Because I suffered from arthritis, psoriasis, kidney stones, migraines, bowel bleeding, ADHD, OCD. I don't know that I was always kind of on the manic side and less on the depressive side. I was always in more in that part of it. But boy, it turned my head around, and I've now learned so much about it. Tell me what particular, you mentioned digestive issues.
Yes,
And my
I know
thought
that's
is
a very general term.
right, but yes, what do you mean by that? Because I have some particular things, because I suffered as a little kid. But
Mhm.
what are we talking about digestive issues?
Yeah, so for me, it was honestly kind of those sharp stabbing pains. I had chronic constipation, and it was very much related to the foods that I was eating. In addition to that, I had gone, like I said, to gastroenterologists, and it was, oh, well, chronic constipation, increase the fiber. Here's some flax. You have the Metamucil. The other things that were pretty significant in me were the reflux. So having that, acid reflux, whether didn't matter kind of what time I ate, even, it was just this certain foods, particularly sauce, tomatoes, were causing acid reflux. And then, of course, doctors were prescribing the omeprazole, the Zantac, Pepcid, all of the acid blockers, proton pump inhibitors.
We're good at drugs.
Very, very good at drugs. And you're right in the sense that we are not taught these things in a medical, as far as our medical education. And in fact, when we talk about it, even if we were to educate ourselves, there's a very fine line as far as what we can say to patients, what we can recommend or prescribe, unless it's a medication.
Well, it's interesting because I talked about these things and I was actually reprimanded and told I could not. And I've somewhat lost my standing in the fact that I have access to, but I still talk about it because ultimately, as a physician, my job is to the patient, not to anyone else. And when I've learned the secret of the truth of disease, it's a game changer.
It really is.
In all of this. And so I know I had all the GI stuff. I had bowel bleeding, hemorrhoids. It was horrible. I had colonoscopies every year, and it was just,
And they would always say that, oh, well, a little inflammation here, but nothing to worry about. And I'm, inflammate, like, why is it inflamed is the real question. And is there something that can be done that can prevent that inflammation?
And I would say so many people don't even want to talk about it because they don't want to talk about their stool, their bowel movements, their stinky this, their GERD, there's all this stuff. It's very embarrassing, but ultimately we all do it. It should be the thing that we really understand what is the normal human, and Dr. Berry, Ken Berry, amazing. What is the optimal human diet? And it's I think like you, it's carnivore, but I don't know that we really know what we ate 10,000, 100,000 years ago. And what are your thoughts on that and our optimal human diet?
Yeah, I really do think that, it makes complete sense to me that here we have these plants that are being eaten and they are creating, they do not want to be eaten. So they are creating these chemicals to give off, so to protect themselves. Just like we evolved, these plants are evolving. You can compare, like, even there's pictures of like a banana today as compared to what it looked like years ago. These things have not only have made modifications in themselves, but also, how we're producing them is very, very different in the terms of the environment, whether they are genetically modified or not, all of those things. So yeah, I think by taking them out, meat is by far the most nutrient dense food. Organ meats, it just makes sense to me. Were we getting butcher box delivered to us years ago? Absolutely not. So when people say, oh yeah, like I'm just like our ancestors, I have to laugh based on the availability of things today and how we actually get access to these things. We're definitely not hunting them. But yeah, no, I believe that when it comes down to it, that meat is by far the most nutrient dense, and keep it simple. Like, there shouldn't be an ingredient list. It should just be the food itself. And like I said, even with plants, these things have been modified so drastically.
And you said that plants don't want to be eaten. And Kevin Stock is really great. He's a dentist on meat health. and learned a lot from him, Dr. Steve Gundry on lectins.
Yes.
There's some others that my brain's not thinking about right now, but it's that the plants contain a tremendous amount of toxins in order to work on an offensive and defensive level to thrive and survive, and to cull the herbivores in their natural environment. So you mentioned about GMOs and genetic modification, and the food that we're eating today, the agriculture is not what it was when we hunted and gathered, right? So
Right.
did we eat grass and grains 50,000 years ago?
No.
We didn't, right?
Mm-mm.
And so we came out of an organism, whatever our evolution was, that probably ate heavy on the meats and organs. And I know you like raw. And
Yes.
so we probably ate a lot of raw stuff way back when. Tell us a little bit about your raw habits and
Yeah. So
recommendations.
yeah, no, I know. I don't, it's not something I necessarily promote. You do not have to eat raw carnivore. It's just something that I particularly like. It's so funny because today is actually National Pasta Day. And so I was, thinking, like what is probably most representative of pasta in like a carnivore setting? And so I actually made tripe last night. I sliced it, thin and boiled tripe. And even that, boiling it, I was like, oh God, I don't really have the patience for cooking. So that's part of it. But the other part of it is just my body is craving more raw food. I mean,
Hmm.
cooking it, particularly liver, a lot of people have problems with liver. And I think that it really provides this metallic taste because when you're heating the minerals, um, I think it personally tastes better when it's raw. So yeah, it comes down really for me down to taste, down to texture. The texture changes pretty dramatically with a lot of these organs when they are cooked. And yeah, it can be dependent on the temperature as well. So here I
Mhm.
am in San Diego, 75 year round. So getting a lot of sun. And at the end of the day, I'm feeling like having something that's more cool or colder right from the refrigerator versus something that's cooked. So I think all those things play a role, but yeah, it's just maybe it's just me.
One way to do it. I'm really grateful to you being on with us, Austin Cavelli, Quality Carnivore, on YouTube and Facebook today. We're going to be answering some questions. So please, your questions regarding inflammation and carnivore, keto, health and wellness on the fertility side is where my focus is. But I believe that if you're infertile and yet you're otherwise healthy, you actually have a disorder of inflammation, which is causing you to be infertile. And ultimately, it's the most important thing of the universe. So let's see.
Absolutely.
Sharmistra Berman has a question. What is the substitute for those that don't eat beef?
Who don't eat beef. Honestly, so carnivore has it's kind of evolved. I've noticed probably over the past year and a half that there is, and I think it's largely due to Jordan Peterson, Michaela Peterson, that they focus on this beef water salt, which I know Dr. Kiltz, you are currently in the process of experimenting with. But yeah, you don't necessarily have to just do beef. Ruminant animals, that being said, ruminant animals are better digesting the plants that they're eating, the grass that they're eating. So for that reason, people do best usually on beef and a lamb. Goat is another one. Chicken and pork. The concern is that if you are trying to bring down inflammation, these animals actually still need to eat grains. They cannot just live off of a grass-fed diet. So they do have to continue to eat grains. And therefore, you think of it in the sense that what they're eating, you're eating. So particularly people with autoimmune conditions, I'll limit the amounts of chicken or pork for that reason, if we really want to do a true elimination diet. But carnivore in general is all animals are fair game, and it's really just a matter of finding what works best for you. Some people do better with higher amounts of seafood. For example, if they have, if they're struggling with their thyroid, seafood is beneficial to them. They feel better with seafood versus others who don't find that seafood is as satiating. So there's a bunch of different ways to approach it, but starting with all animals, that's completely carnivore, that's completely fair game.
Yeah, so I do beef mostly. I do some chicken, duck, oysters, lobster.
Yeah.
I don't eat much fish, but it's preference of. And I mean, the ribeye is like my go-to for
Yes.
sure. I'll take
You do the bone-in ribeye,
the
correct?
bone-in ribeye is the very best in my
Smart
opinion.
man.
I think liver is really critical. Organ meats are critical, but they're not, you can do some supplements. But really, if you're eating a carnivore diet and not eating all the plants chelate the minerals and vitamins from our body. They destroy the glycocalyx, which is really critical, the Teflon shield of our body. And we seep out all of this stuff for, it's a really, I think, a big issue in all of this. So what are the leading immune, I call them immunologic disorders, not autoimmune disorders, in my opinion, because there are certain particles that cause inflammation that happen to cause it in certain organs. We espouse it to be an organ autoimmune problem, but our body doesn't actually attack our body. It's trying to remove the foreign particles that are in our body, either chemicals or antigens. But what are the most common immunologic disorders you see in your practice, and how do you treat those best?
Yeah, so the most common I would actually say is thyroid disease. Hashimoto's is pretty prominent. Other ones would be arthritis, like rheumatoid arthritis. And then the other would be really skin, or related to skin, where people are dealing with whether it's psoriatic arthritis or even things like eczema. Very, very common, very common. So yeah, those I think would be the most common. In addition to that would be your digestive concerns, as far as whether it's irritable bowel, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis. So those are the top ones, I'd say.
And so when you're counseling someone who's like, I'm Italian upbringing, and I love to cook Italian, Mexican, didn't Chinese, didn't matter. Growing up in LA, I did all of that. And again, it's at 10 years ago. I switched completely, went to that one meal, mostly carnivore. Again, it's mostly steak. But occasionally, once in a while. But I'm on that 30 days of salt, water, and steak because I did a TEDx talk a few years ago called the Lion King Plan, and my theory is we are lions. Steak is it. But we love variety. We love spice, but variety and spice I'm finding is more deadly for so many. So I come to you and I got my bowel, my eczema, my arthritis, my bowel bleeding, my migraines, OCD, and all those things, which maybe it's good for me, by the way, not so bad. How would you approach me in your dietary consulting work?
Yeah. So it's really kind of finding where the person is at. The fact that they're coming to me is a great sign, just to begin with, because you never want to push this on anyone. It's not, even if you did, like, they may follow it for a couple of weeks or months or, whatnot, but then they fall off the wagon, so to speak. So yeah, pushing it is really not the best approach. I think leading by example and sharing our stories like we're doing is very helpful. But it's getting a thorough medical history. They want to make a change. They don't want to feel this way anymore. Getting a full medical history, and then also seeing where they're at in the sense of these lifestyle changes. So many times they will tell me, I'm ready to go, kind of this all or nothing type A personality, which is great. But I do want to make sure that it is going to be long-term, that it is going to be sustainable, because, these are conditions that aren't just going to go away with 6 weeks of a perfect diet. So making sure that they have that support to make this transition. Some people, they can, just like you, kind of throw it in and go for it. And they'll never look back because they realize how much better they feel. But other people, that restriction, these are the people that I like to call moderators. That restriction, even just that mindset of restriction, it makes it so that it isn't long-term for them. They just can't wrap their head around it, and they can't sustain it. So by making sure that they are, comfortable with the steps that we're taking, even if that does have to be transitional, in that, okay, non-negotiables, first and foremost, the seed, vegetable oils, sugar, and the grains, we'll start there. And then slowly transition. Okay, we don't, these are the reasons that we don't want this vegetable. Then it's more approachable. They have the transition for those things, like in the keto space, for example. There's the keto treats, there's the fat bombs. And so if that is the way that they would prefer to go, do I think they'll benefit, or they'll see, better results a little bit more quickly with carnivore and eliminating these things altogether? Yes. But again, we have to get there kind of slowly if they're more moderators, because the mindset, that is something I do focus on in my interview, is mindset. The body and the mind have to be well aligned. You can just focus on diet alone, and like I said, it won't be sustainable if they're not in balance with that.
Are we eating to live or living to eat?
Yeah.
And I think we're in a world of constant dopamine, getting that dopamine drive, and always kind of that party of life, and going out there and just being part of it, rather than, as you said, it's a mind game. And
Right.
I think the way I learned it was first to read and listen and learn from so many. Jimmy Moore. I read Gary Taubes' Good Calories, Bad Calories. And then I went and dug through everything, because I wanted to understand the why. And I think you've used the why part of it. In this, I listened to your interview with Judy Cho.
Yes.
And I did an interview with her a few months ago, and her stuff on carnivore. You have to read her book. Really good. It's that mindfulness, and then the why am I doing this? What's the reason that I'm doing this, and understand that why. But by learning from yourself and Jimmy Moore and so many in this space, it's really interesting. Now, there's a couple questions here.
Yeah.
We got let's see here. Oh, Ashley Nostrant. What are your thoughts on doing keto during pregnancy? How would someone get all the nutrients needed if they want to do keto? What are your...
Yeah, no, keto during pregnancy, absolutely. I mean, carnivore during pregnancy, absolutely. That is where you're getting your nutrients. It is this, we have been taught that nutrients come from, vitamins and minerals come from plants. And if you were to, there's an excellent graphic. I believe it's on, I know Maria Emmerich has used it in the past, and Judy Cho as well. And it is comparing plants as far as their vitamin and mineral content as compared to beef. And there's just no comparison.
It's also in Kiltz's Keto Lifestyle for Fertility, by the way, which is our newer version. But we have that in here, that you're right. It's majority is from the meat we eat.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And even just including like an ounce or two of organ meats. I mean, if you like organ liver, beef liver is the most nutrient dense food on the planet per calorie. Like there's no arguing it. So as far as making sure that you're getting your nutrients, that would not be a concern during pregnancy or just in general.
So I talk a lot about fasting is like one of the most
Yeah.
important and powerful things you can do. That's why I recommend one meal a day. The more you fill the belly with food, you have constant secretion of amino acids and simple sugars into the liver. Fat goes to the lymphatics. Our body must convert amino acids and simple sugars to fat or you die. Our real nutrient for the mitochondria is only fatty acids. And so fasting turns out to be the best way. And many mammals actually fast for 6 to 9 months during pregnancy. So I think that the hyperemesis of pregnancy, nausea and vomiting early on, is your body saying don't eat. And that's why we get fat, because fat is the only fuel for your fetus. And it's your amino acids are not the fuel for the fetus. You need some amino acids in order to make some of the post-translational modifications of the hormones and things which require amino acids. But sugar is only used for glycosylation, which is kind of interesting. So I agree with you. If fasting and keto, I'd say carnivore is the best. But if you're not a carnivore, this is where the concept of keto is amazing. And if you're miscarrying or infertile and you get pregnant on keto, stay it through pregnancy. And my bias is keto for life. And we use the word keto or carnivore, which is kind of a conundrum because there's probably so many people's ideas out there on what keto is. So it's finding the one that works for you, I guess. If you're having no more problems and you're happy, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Would you say?
I would agree.
My theory is that vegetables, plants, seeds, nuts, all cause cancer. And the problem is it's hard to believe because, as you and I talked earlier, the healthiest diet we're all taught to eat is a plant-based diet, limited meat, no red meat, and certainly fat is not good for us, which is a lie, as Dr. Berry would say. Lies I was taught as a doctor or medical.
Oh, even the concepts around salt. I mean, so many things. Like even if you're not even thinking of the extreme of cancer, blood pressure, that is much a very common issue. We're told stay away from salt, stay away from salt. I mean, that's one of the first things. Oh, well, I'm going to retain fluid and I'm going to have high blood pressure because I'm eating all this salt. And I said, no, you can eat more salt. Like, please eat more salt.
We're made of salt water, and that's critical. We're drinking too much water, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I see that in clients. It's a lot of times out of habit. That's the first question I ask is, are you drinking because you're actually thirsty, or is it because you just have a bottle of water next to you all day? And it's 9 times out of 10, it's because it's just there, and so I drink it.
So everyone needs a coach and a cheerleader. That's really where you come in order to help people learn about the keto concept or health and wellness living. Carnivore is one option, but because we need someone to listen and learn from, where can people find you on the internet so they can get you as a coach always?
Yes. So I am on Facebook. I am on Instagram, but to make an appointment, honestly, the best way, the easiest way, quickest way is going to be on my website at qualitycarnivore.com. There's a button right up at the top of the website that says book an appointment, and I will get on a free call with you and we will discuss, what your goals are, what you're looking for, and make sure that it's a good fit. I'm, 100% want to make sure that I can help you. Expectations, are being set early on. And so we'll go through that, just what your goals are, and I'll make sure that I can deliver.
How do you care for the vegans, vegetarians of the world that want to maintain that diet? Are you able to help them, or do you refer
Yeah,
them
so
to them?
that's the thing. I think, I'm not going to be, is that my recommendation? No. But as far as doing it in a way that is going to promote, more, getting away from the processed foods, for example, getting away from the soy. One of the biggest phytoestrogens is soy, and the products that are being pushed, are all soy based, and so even that, a lot of it is marketing and money, having these companies just put money in their pockets because it's a shelf stable product. But even that alone, talking about soy and estrogen dominance, I mean, I'm sure we could go on with your field of expertise for sure.
Well, I think we want to work on ways to encompass everyone in this journey. Our pride of lionesses and lions are really critical that we support and find ways to help them, whether they're vegan, vegetarians, Mediterraneans, or
Yeah.
carnivarians. That's really important. Just a quick shout out. Our new book with Maria Emmerich, the Fertile Feast Cookbook. Excited about it. And I think Austin, we need to do the book on
Yes,
carnivore
we
for
are cooking
fertility.
it up right now.
Absolutely, because again, we all are finding the thing that fits for us individually, and I think you called it a bio individual.
Yes,
What is
bioindividuality.
bio individuality? Now, my
And
theory.
basically, that's a fancy way of saying that we are all unique.
We're unique in our thoughts and beliefs, but when it comes to biology, we're all the same. That's again, I'm giving you my trickle down of the
Yeah,
idea
no, no,
because when I
no.
look under a cell, I know that cell is a human cell. Well, actually, you don't even
Yeah,
know it's always a human cell because they're cells, and the cell is the
yeah.
most amazing, amazing miracle unit of the universe. And how we all got here, I don't know. Someone does, but we're all unique individuals,
Yes.
and that's how we want to sort of bring this all together. But our concepts and ideas are global ideas. Inflammation is caused by some interaction of a foreign particle, chemical,
Yes.
or excess carbohydrates and a low-fat diet.
I think
And
you nailed it on the head that we are humans. And so the things that have made us unique in the sense of symptoms, or problems that we're having that we've developed, these are actually a product of the chemicals, the things that are not biological, that are not what our cells have needed, over time. So, we've almost treated ourselves like machines, and you may give chemicals to make a machine properly work, but for humans, no, we have to go back to the bare minimum, the main sources of nutrients for our cells. We are not machines. So those chemicals, unfortunately, have created these diseases that we're facing, or these symptoms that we're facing. And an elimination approach is really the best
and,
way.
99% of the chemicals are actually made by the plants because they're the machine. That's where we get all of our medicines from initially for the
Yeah.
last thousands of years. I call us the miracle machine. And in my TEDx talk, I compared the human to the Ferrari and the
Yes.
lion to the pig. And ultimately, the function of all of these machines is similar. And the energy that we create is ATP, and it's made from fatty acids because without fat, we die. And that's a really interesting comments that I think are, what
That's
the
another thing
idea.
that I also focus on is, many people, in this with the increase in fat, they get very nervous, about their lab work and their cholesterol, and then the doctor is immediately wants to put them on a statin. So that is another service that I provide, not only with recommendations of labs, but also the interpretation, because many people, they get these results. Their doctor says, whoa, your cholesterol is greatly increased. I said, what have you been doing? You need to stop it immediately. And their interpretation is based on these standard American diet reference ranges, which we cannot compare those numbers to. So we have to be able to interpret them in the setting of a ketogenic diet, in the setting of a carnivore diet, what you're actually doing, that those numbers are not, your standard American ranges are not what you should be focused on. So that is another thing that I do for clients. And usually,
Cool.
Minimum of at least every 3 months, 6 months, I guess would be the minimum. So twice a year getting labs, I think, is important.
Yeah, so I saw your great interview with Jimmy Moore,
Yes.
Let's see, low carb keto, La Vida,
You live in
La
low
Vida
carb.
low carb,
Yeah.
just really great stuff. And I learned a lot about him. I've got some of his stuff in my book.
Yeah.
And I talk about making ice cream, by the way.
Yes.
And so I am personally biased that a little bit of sugar is okay because our body actual simple sugar is converted to fat quickly, which keeps our insulin levels low. Complex carbs take days to digest, which keeps our sugar high. So that's why the vegetables are actually deadly if you cook them well and simplify them and add the fat. And ice cream is that treat. And we all need to be treated because that's life. Rewards and treats are good. We don't want to be. What are your thoughts on spices? Because I grew up with garlic and onions and peppers and salsa and all those things. What's your thoughts?
My thoughts, I personally don't use them. I just use salt, but I do not have problems with them. I think even on a carnivore diet, if you are, again, it depends on the person's history. For example, patients with autoimmune diseases, am I saying, well, go and eat as many nightshade, spices as you want? No, but I do think they create some variety for sure. I mean, lamb, having some garlic with lamb or rosemary on lamb, like it provides that extra element. If people do feel that they are restrictive in the sense of tastes. But I definitely focus obviously on quality. And so I think it's very important to always get organic spices. I also think it's important, if you can, to get them. There are some companies that do third-party testing, their lab testing, and that is to minimize heavy metals, because these things can be very significant in spices if they are dried, on the shelf spices. So that's it depends on the person. I know it's not the answer that people like, but it depends on the person. And if it is going to bring you some joy to your meals, then I have no problem with it.
From time to time, and I know for this Italian that I loved all the spices, but when I eliminated them all the diseases went away. And now when I have a spice from time to time, I would have the prig pow sauce at lemongrass, dip my steak in for I did it a couple of times, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, ooh, it was like, and I love spicy things, but I recognize that, and when it's your body as you're younger is more tolerable and able to repair. But we're seeing more and more young people that are getting cancer and all sorts of immunologic disorders and infertility. And so, you're giving a lifestyle plan that is there to help people that are suffering. Ultimately, we're all in control of what we put in the mind and the mouth and how we move our bodies. It's up to us individually to decide, I'm going to do this. If it works for me, great. If not, I got to keep moving and don't change. And I've always said that variety and spice is deadly, because you can't have 5 boyfriends or 5 girlfriends at a time. Go to the amusement park every day. Ultimately, you will suffer. This is a temple. We must spend more time in the temple and you can occasionally go to the carnivore, or again, go to the carnivore. So, I think that's really good. Let's see. Should be an organic grass-fed meat. I think you mentioned that. A well-sourced,
Yeah.
organic grass-fed for meats, local if you can. I think that's
Yeah. So there's a website, it's called eatwild.com. And that will provide, I'm always supporting, I think it's very important to support local. And you'll also have a little bit more control in the sense of talking to these farmers and seeing, what their actual practices are versus going to your, large grocery stores. So yeah, quality I think is always important. Organic, grass-fed, grass-finished. Grass-fed and grass-finished is really going to be beneficial in the sense of omega-3s. If the animals are grain finished, the toxins from these grains are being deposited in the fat. So, having the grain-fed ribeye versus the grain-fed fillet, I would go with the leaner cut and then add grass-fed butter or grass-fed fats. These are all little nuances, but I do think they matter for sure. I think if like you said, this is your temple and you should be putting in the best quality that you can. I mean, think about even just water. People will say, oh, filtration system or, that in my home, that's expensive. And it's like, you are made up of, water. Like you're putting that into your body every single day. I would say that's worth it.
You're worth it because you're the most valuable, expensive entity of the universe.
Absolutely.
Take
Health
care
is
of you
wealth.
first. Who's going to, right?
That's right.
One meal a day.
Yes.
What are your thoughts?
I love one meal a day. I live on one meal a day. Occasionally, if I'm hungry, I'll go to 2 meals a day. But no, I love one meal a day. Not only for the simplicity, but when you are eating a very nutrient dense diet, your hunger is very well controlled. You're not having those blood sugar spikes, and it's very satiating. It's a matter of finding out at what time that one meal a day is for you, depending on your schedule, depending on what time you go to bed, those types of things. But I completely agree with you that fasting is. We are, it's so funny in here in San Diego. I see people going to the beach and they have like massive coolers with them. And I'm thinking in my head, like, how long are you going to be here? Like, why is that necessary? Or we go to the airport and we have to, just the availability of food. Like, it's okay to go without food. Our bodies are well equipped to handle it. Should you go OMAD from the get-go? Fasting is kind of like a muscle in that you do have to work up to it a little bit. And especially if you have history of, diabetes or trouble managing blood glucose, you do want to make sure that is something that is controlled, that is being monitored. But I completely agree with you in that fasting is a very, very useful tool. We are not supposed to be eating every hour of every day, even every couple hours.
So the dangerous part is that if you're going to the market and buying all the stuff that's in the home that is available. So I say, take a roster of all the food in your cupboards, in the refrigerator, take pictures of them and recognize that if they're there, we're going to eat them because our brain doesn't know that there's food tomorrow. So it's going to do everything to get you eating those things today because it wants to make you fat so you can survive the famine. We have been taught that being fat is bad. In actuality, being fat causes no disease whatsoever. Being fat is the survival healthiest thing you can be. And the problem is what we fill the bucket with. If you fill it 3 to 6 times a day, it's always secreting all those things that you talk about, the toxins, but it's always secreting sugar into the bloodstream. That causes the damage. So that one meal or less is the very best, in my opinion, even no matter what you're eating. If you do that one thing, is it easy? Of course not. But anyone can do easy if you really care about you, right? And that's what you're bringing this story is like it actually is, but you must say it first and do the work and never give up That's
Right.
really the critical part to this, right?
It is. If it were, I say that it is, the diet itself is simple. But is it easy? No. And that is what I help to, to bring to clients, is to make it easier, but you still have to do the work.
I either need a therapist or a coach, a cheerleader, or someone I can talk to every day to take me down off the ledge, make me realize that I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
But these are the things that it's this idea of we listen to the story that's been told over and over and over
Right.
and over again, and we physicians and physicians assistants and nutritionists and whoever you are in this world of what's healthy and well, right?
Right. No, absolutely. And then a lot of it is, change requires change. So it's changing the mindset, first and foremost, and then, doing the hard work. And also just realizing that, yeah, like you said, like, you are your temple. You are your only limit.
Yeah.
So, you really have to be on board. You have to do it for yourself, not for anybody else. And be consistent. Long term, this is a long term solution, and it really can change your life. You once you realize what your new baseline is of how you feel every day, the work that I don't have to convince you of, you won't go back.
We have so many women conceiving through keto, whatever. Oh, it doesn't matter the form of it.
Yeah.
1 or 2 meals a day. It's been a miracle, amazing thing, and those diseases are going away. And I'm sure you have infinite number of stories in the same way.
Absolutely.
And the stories really tell us the answer. And the problem is that in science and medicine, we're looking for the prospective randomized double-blind placebo-controlled studies that aren't there.
No,
What,
and
what do you say to
unfortunately, a
that?
lot of
Well,
the
where's the
research.
science? Where's the science?
Yeah, well, it's sad because a lot of the research is also funded by these large companies that are pushing other things. So, yes, we want the science, but anecdotal evidence is very, very powerful. And we're seeing, it has been this not only, oh, well, the previous study said this, it's this fear of doing something that's out of the norm and out of what we've been told for so long. So a lot of that, the combination, I think, is what drives people away from it. But I think anecdotal evidence, like I said, leading by example, is very, very powerful.
Our healthcare world is very judgmental in a negative way to our patients. If they're not following directions, they're not making progress, it's their fault, and they're not following our recommendations, and they're often dismissed from our clinics, which I think is unconscionable and wrong and biased in too many negative ways. We can only help people if we become a member of their team. We're not
Absolutely.
above them, we're with them. And actually, in some way, we're down here saying, here's some ideas.
Yeah,
You may not think they might work, but it's you got to start someplace, I imagine,
absolutely.
right? Right.
Absolutely.
And
You have to
again,
kind of meet
mention
them where they're at, and then once the momentum starts, I mean, they're in it, they're ready, and motivation is generally how, when people come to me, they're like, oh, I'm ready to go, I'm motivated, but we can't depend on motivation to be 100% every day. It really is a matter of having, like you said, that support, that cheerleader, and consistency over time is really what drives the success.
I think that faith and listening and learning on a repetitive basis and just keep on working on whatever the mission is.
Yeah.
And the more you keep at it, you're going to have some faults and falls and missteps, and you might find that isn't the right one. You're going to then find something else. So
Yeah.
that's really
Everything is a lesson learned. There isn't
everything's
a
a
good or
lesson
bad,
learned.
it's a lesson learned.
Yes, 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 yes. So tell us a little bit about supplements and what are your recommendations regarding supplements? There's a question here. Supplements that we could take instead of eating liver or organs. And I know we have
Yeah.
a liver supplement now, which we recommend. There's some ideas on frozen organ
Mhm.
parts and things like that.
Yes.
What are your thoughts?
So my personal thoughts, I'm always about eating the whole food, the whole source. And again, this just kind of goes back to the fact that if we're eliminating processed things in the sense of our diet as far as processed foods, that similarly, all of these supplements are processed in a facility. That being said, it's a matter of risk versus benefit. So if you are deficient in things, these are supplements and that they are providing, a little boost temporarily. Do I think that people should be dependent on them? No. But things, for example, like magnesium, even that is very depleted from our soil, just based on practices over years and years and years. I think everyone can use magnesium. Other things, vitamin D, depending on where you're living, if you were to supplement with vitamin D during the winter months, not a bad idea. So it depends on what you're using it for. Should it completely substitute the natural source? No. So, even with vitamin D, I'll say, well, let's incorporate more egg yolks. Let's incorporate, more salmon roe. I always go to food first. And then from there, I would, if it's not available or you actually there was something you were suffering from due to that deficiency, a supplement's not a bad idea. But the quicker you can get off that supplement, because there are other things in that supplement and it is processed, I generally say let's go for the whole food itself.
And I agree with you 100%. If we can do the whole food, that's going to be the best way. That's the way this body was built, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can supplement as much as you want, but are you absorbing it is really the question.
I think the same, you're right. So you could take the supplements, they're going to help some more in some people over others, depending on the amount of inflammation.
Right.
And I think that's really important thing. Let's see. What else? We talked about one meal a day. What are thoughts and ideas that I haven't asked you that you think are really important to share with the viewers today?
I really think I think we've hit most of them, just in the sense of doing this for yourself. Recognizing that you are worth it. You are. This is your temple. This is your body. I get a lot of questions about just even social situations, and I I have to kind of sit there and think like, but you're not doing this for anyone else. Like it should always be about, like, it's okay to be selfish in this regard. Your health is wealth. So I think really emphasizing the mindset, emphasizing your why is very, very important. And I do this with clients. They don't expect, they want to hear about the macros, and they want to hear about what they should eat, what they shouldn't eat. But the mind is a huge part of it as well in your healing. Whether you've been diagnosed with mental illness or not, the mindset is very, very powerful. So that is another thing that I focus on, in addition to what you're coming to me for with symptoms, deficiencies, healing of mold toxicity, any, disease, you name it. But mindset, knowing your why, and being an advocate for your own health, you are the only person that is in control of that. So taking that stand I think is very powerful.
Well, Austin Cavelli, Quality Carnivore, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure. So
I
once
know
again,
we could literally talk for hours on this stuff.
absolutely. So where can people find you again?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at Quality Carnivore, also on Facebook. I have a bunch of my interviews are also on those platforms, just in the sense of what you can listen more, see what I'm about. If you want to book an appointment, go directly on my website, qualitycarnivore.com. Right at the top, you can book an appointment. We'll get on a call and make sure that we're a good fit. We'll discuss what your personal health goals are and how I can help you, whether that is, signing up for a plan, getting lab work, being able to interpret previous labs that you've had done. So lots of services that I offer. And it's about you. It's about bringing you to a new level of health and rebuilding your health And that's what I'm here to do. I am your cheerleader. I'm in it with you, and finding the right strategy for you. It's very important. You're an individual.
Well, great cheerleader. And Rachel, Jessica, Stephanie, Ashley, let's see,
Yeah.
Yvette, and Nora, Jennifer, Ashley, again, Allison. There's so many people. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you,
Check out
thank you.
Austin on Quality Carnivore. We're so grateful again. Check us out next week on the Fertile Fireside Chat, 10 a.m. on Sunday and 11 o'clock, Kiltz's Keto Conversations. God bless everyone. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kiltz.
It's a pleasure. Pleasure, Austin.